Peace, everybody. It's Randomly Selected, powered by the Silver Room. My name is Mario. Thank you so much for listening. We truly appreciate it, like we say every time that we meet with you. And I would like to remind you to rate and review, please. Very important. Today's show, man, listen. Special stuff today. From Stretch and Bobbito, an author in his own right, supremely gifted basketball player and an amazing DJ, Bobbito Garcia is on the show today. We talked to Bobbito about his new book, his contributions as a writer to the culture, the hip-hop industry and all of that, and how much has the sneaker culture changed since its beginnings. And if you don't know, a very important part of the sneaker culture is the man that's about to talk right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Randomly Selected is proud to present Bobbito Garcia.
Yeah, what up? Peace.
Bobbito. Peace, brother. How are you? How you doing, man?
Peace. I never tried that, the upside down microphone. I'm good, B. I had such a blessed morning, and I honestly, man, like, I've been on my super hustle grind. I released a book on December 5th, 2022 titled Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High. And bust how I just, I've been knocking down doors, man, being real creative with it and not really depending on the publishing world, to open up his doors because they kind of haven't, So I've been forced with the publisher, We Are Little Giants, they're Black Puerto Rican owned business, to just, think alternatively. So we've opened up accounts, with basketball organizations, with sneaker boutiques like Premium Goods, with record shops like Fat Beats and The Shop in Queens and The Spot in Geneva. And, and so it was bugged out. Like I reached out to my man, Scoop Jackson.
My man.
Yeah, exactly. We all love Scoop, right? So I was like, yo, Scoop, like, please give me a rundown of where do you think my book should be repped in the Shy, and he hit me back. He was like, the Silver Room. I was like, oh, why did I think about that, yo? Because quite honestly, when Eric booked me to do the Silver Room back in 2018 or 2019, I don't remember which one it was, but I never even got to the shop. You know what I'm saying? The spot, the whole area was so, immense with population, people dancing on the street. I had to DJ and, I'm a low key dude. A lot of people don't really realize that, but, I kind of shy away from big crowds at times, so after my set, I just went back to the hotel room. Right. I never got to the, so I didn't know he carried books. So when Scoop, let me know, I had to hit up Eric, and then bust out, he was like, yo, people have been coming into the Silver Room asking for Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High. And I was like, nah. He's like, yo, I literally just looked it up on a distributor. And so, to date, we've been locked out of distribution because they all have a whack rule that you can't, you can't be down with them unless you have 10 titles in your catalog. So if you're an independent publisher, or, self-published, you basically locked out of Ingram, which is the biggest distributor in the world, and which is tough because, a lot of BIPOC authors or BIPOC-owned publishers, it takes money to put out a book. And if you wait to get to 10 titles, it could take you a few years. And so in the meantime, you just got to hustle and bustle. I'm sorry, you haven't even asked me a question yet.
No, bro, look, it sounds like what you're doing with the book is not unprecedented, because I know plenty of cats who self-publish, in fact. But what it sounds like is happening is that it's still catching on, even without that big piece of assistance from a publisher. It sounds like everybody is digging the book too.
Oh, nah, people are loving the book. I mean, from children, I had this one girl from Queens. She's in the Grow Our Game basketball program that my homegirl Shanae Joy Jones runs. And it's a beautiful initiative that what she's doing, really empowering the minds of girls specifically, with the clinics that they do outdoors and indoors. And so Shanae bought 50 books, And I tell any organization, you're going to buy a quantity like that, we giving it to you for half off.
Right.
Just straight up. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to pay the retail list price for that, because you're doing a beautiful thing for our community. And so she passed out the books, and there's one of her players reached out to, her mom reached out to me on IG and was like, yo, my daughter loves your book. Yo, she literally thinks that you wrote it about her.
Wow.
And so, that struck me because, me and Shanae had a long conversation about, Black, brown, BIPOC, people of color, they need to be seen, they need to be reflected. And the fact that my book, Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High, could impact that young 8-year-old in that way, where she told her mother that, like, out her face, like that, that really bugged me out. So anyway, so I went on IG and, I left her a voice message. I was like, yo, thank you so much for your kind words. Listen to Shanae, listen to your moms, listen to your safe adults, keep working hard. I see that you love the game. Because I looked at her IG feed and, this little girl loves basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like, loves it. She'd be dribbling on the sidewalk, you know what I'm saying? Like, practicing. And I'm like, yo, just keep the love going, for the rest of your life. I'm 56 and I'll go outside in 25-degree weather, put up jump shots, And yo, she responded, Mario, with a voice text saying, I love your book, like emphatically. Yo, that made it all worth it, B. That made every rejection that we've got. I've reached out to 50 plus bookshops across the United States, Yeah. 50, maybe 60 at this point. Phone calls, DMs, emails. Say about like 3 bookshops have picked up my book so far, So that's a lot of rejection to deal with,
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I'm so grateful for a Silver Room, or for a Premium Goods in Houston, or Concourse Coffee in Portland. It's a coffee shop, you know what I'm saying? And they're like, yo, Bob, we love what you do. We trust you. They didn't even read the book. They just picked it up on the strength.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
And so anyway, but getting a response like that from, little Ellie, it made it like, I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the book just goes under the radar for life, of course I want it in mom and pop shops, Black owned, Latino owned, all that. I want to reach the people that don't know who I am. You know what I'm saying? I want people reading it that don't follow me on IG, that aren't in the basketball space, that aren't in the hip hop world, that aren't in the sneaker world, don't know my impact whatsoever, but just can appreciate a narrative that's very original and unique, and let me tell you about the narrative. It's about Taina, a 9-year-old Afro-Boricua basketball novice growing up in Brooklyn during the pandemic, who learns life lessons from family, friends, and community. And I don't know another book. I mean, perhaps there is, but me and my co-parent, we buy books for our child all the time. We unschooling him here at the crib. And, it's difficult to find books about, outdoor basketball. Most of the basketball books that I picked up, it's like 5-on-5,
right.
Little shorties on the team, whatever. Like, nah, like, that's not my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I play ball, I play pickup, I train myself, I train other people, so I want to put something in that context. And so it's original in that way. And then, and then with regards to the pandemic, I don't know, I haven't seen a book for children helping them with social emotional learning during this time, and so my book sort of, it has a lot of entry points, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that We Are Little Giants, the publisher, Ivan Rivera and Christy Hill, that they gave me, because it's not like I shopped it to them. Mario, they hit me up. They were like, yo, we want you to write a book for us.
Right.
I was like, word? I was like, bet, let's get it. But I'm sorry, I'm talking way too much. You can see I'm amped.
There is no, if you know
you
me.
look mad cool, by the way. I like your outfit, man,
Here we go. I want to talk to you about basketball too, but you wrote a children's book. This is your 5th book?
No. This is only the 2nd book I've ever written.
Really? Why did I think you had more than 2. My bad.
Well, because I've written the forwards
Yeah.
and introductions and contributions to, a few titles. I actually have an online bookshop. It's at bookshop.org/shop/KoolBobLove, KoolBoblove. I think that's the URL. You can just go to KoolBobLove.com. That's my website, and click on books and take them. So, every book that I've contributed to is at my online bookshop, with the exception of Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High, because bookshop.org is fed by Ingram, and if you can't get on Ingram, then you can't get on my shop. So it's kind of like bizarre, right? But anyway, We Are Little Giants, as a publisher, they've put out 4 books. They did ABCs for Little G's, which is a dope board book for children to learn the alphabet. So V is for Vans, L is for LeBron, A is for Adidas, it's like that. And so they did a remix book, and then they did a book for DJs, for kids to learn the alphabet through DJ culture. And then my book was the 5th book, Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High. So, perhaps maybe at some point, Mario, we're going to be talking in the next few years, and I'll be like, yeah, I'll put out my 5th book.
Let's speak that into existence, bro. That's more than reasonable and doable, my friend.
No doubt. I mean, it is particularly because during the pandemic, I have not been doing any in-person appearances whatsoever. So I've been virtual strictly for 3 years. And so, because I'm not traveling, because I'm not jet lagged, and I'm home, that also allowed the space for me to write this book. I just wrote, I'm about to write the forward for Russ Bankston's upcoming sneaker book that's coming out on Workman Publishing. I just wrote a contribution to John Jay's upcoming book. He's a advertising legend. He was the global creative director at Wieden and Kennedy, which did all the Nike ads, including the "Just Do It" slogan came from Wieden and Kennedy's desk. So yeah, John Jay is a legend, and he asked me to contribute. So I've been doing some other writing, here and there, but Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High is the main focus.
Your book, Sneakerhead, is 20 years old.
And well, my book title, Where'd You Get Those? New York City Sneaker Culture, 1960 to 1987, was released in 2003. You are absolutely correct. It is the 20th anniversary this year of the release of that book. We will put out a 20th anniversary edition.
Yes, sir.
Testify is the publisher there. They're fantastic. But not even they, it's she. Testify Publishing is one person, Dana James, formerly Dana Albarella. And, she put out the Sue Quan book. She put out, she did Ego Trip Book of Rap List back in the 90s when she was at St. Martin's Press.
Yeah.
She did the Ricky Powell Old Snap book. She's actually the progenitor of hip hop publishing, just straight up.
And I'm familiar with her name too. She's a major part of hip hop and literacy being connected.
Yes. Absolutely. So I'm blessed to be on her imprint, Testify. And we're going to do something special for the 20th anniversary. I'm bugging that even the book is still in print,
But
it's like,
with that in mind, over those 20 years, how much has the sneaker culture changed? You're a big part of that becoming a more of a thing. But how much, in your estimation, how much has it changed over the last 20 years?
Well, I mean, certain things have not changed at all, right? There's still the hunger that people have to, wear something that's really evocative and speaks, which speaks volumes for their unique character, right? So that's been consistent since the 60s, right? And that's one of the reasons why I was inspired to write my first book, Where'd You Get Those? Because in the early 2000s, I kept on seeing media just being like, oh, this new thing, this new sneaker culture. And I'm like, nah, this ain't, you don't know what happened before Jordan. So let me tell y'all what happened prior to Mike.
Right.
And that's why I stopped the book at 1987, because after 87, basically the world pretty much knows what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, the Bulls win 6 chips. Michael goes on to be the greatest player, and his sneaker becomes the most iconic, you know? We know that, you know, even if you're like 12 years old, 13, you kind of know that, you know? So that's why I focus my book on what I call like the dark ages, you know? But so, I mean, so while some of it hasn't changed, a lot has completely flipped, right? And I don't think many could have predicted how big and how wide the sneaker movement has become. In particular, I think one of the biggest evolutions has been the addition of a new group that shares in the profit of sneaker distribution. You know, prior it was just the brands, the distributors, and the retail shops, you know, and then that was it. Then it was like, okay, cool. You know, you're going to give somebody a pair of shoes, or you're going to, you know, give your little brother or, you know, cousin a hand-me-down, or you're going to donate to the various nonprofits that take lightly worn and new shoes and distribute them throughout, you know, developing areas around the world, you know, like Hoops for Hope, Soul for Souls, Samaritan's Feet. There's some phenomenal organizations that do incredible work, you know. But, you know, in the last however many years now, like you have a new market for resellers, and some of them are like, yo, I've been to the events, you know, some of them are like 12 years old, 11 years old, you know, holding up sneakers like $150, you know, and I'm like, wow, from my era, you know, and I don't know how old you are, but
we're a year apart, bro.
Okay, cool. So you know what time it is. I mean, back in the 80s, you know, you had an expensive pair of sneakers, you had to duke it out. You know, you know, if you was in the right area, if you was in the wrong area or the wrong block or the wrong stoop, you might very well had to be prepared, you know. And so I'm glad that criminal element is not as pervasive. It's still pervasive in some places, but, you know, it's not as relevant in these days and ages. And, you know, and a kid, you know, can work on their entrepreneurial skills using, you know, an item that's of interest to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not selling lemonade. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're selling sneakers. And I'm not against that. You know, I do think that, you know, part of it has warped the cultural value of certain models, whereby a shoe becomes limited and coveted because it's going to make a lot of money, not because it's beautifully designed and so dipped it up with their outfit so fresh that it became something that had value, you know. I'm not about economic value. I get a lot of requests for quotes from media, like, let's say like once a week, you know, sometimes even more. What do you think of the new, you know, so-and-sos that just came out and how they're selling for $15,000? Like, ask somebody else. I don't care about that, you know. Like, for real, like, you know. But, you know, I'm still enthusiastic about how people wear them, you know, how people feel about them, you know, the performance aspect, because I'm a ball player first, you know. Yeah, so, but yeah, that's how things have changed.
I talked to Bobbito about growing up in New York playing basketball in the 70s and the early 80s, and I also asked him about his early connections to Chicago by way of basketball. His More with Bobbito Garcia on Randomly Selected.
I'm so thankful for that, you know, being born in 1966 and catching the fever for basketball. I started playing ball in 1973, but I caught like the bug by 1980. And you know, it's documented in my book, Where'd You Get Those? New York City Sneaker Culture, 1960 to 1987. It's documented in my last film, Rock Rubber 45s, which I'm thankful to Rano out in the Shy, you know, for helping produce the premiere of the film out there. And also the Silver Room, you know, had a lot to do with, you know, I screened Rock Rubber 45s at the theater right across the street from the hotel. Started with an H.
Harper
the name
Theater.
of it.
Looking at it right now.
Okay, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, we screened it there, you know. And Eric had you know, heads up in there, you know, chock full during the party. People took a break and, you know, came to see the film. I did a Q&A afterwards. So I was thankful for that, for the love from Chicago. But you know, if you haven't seen my film or you haven't read my books, you know, the cross section of basketball and hip hop on the streets of New York was just so beautiful, because it was our thing. You know, the rest of the world really didn't know about it, you know. And yes, rap records were getting pressed up, but, you know, there wasn't, you know, artwork. You know, people didn't know what we looked like. They didn't know how we dressed, you know. You got to think, I grew up at the GOAT, you know, named after Earl Manigault, and the Playground Legend was in the park on a daily basis, as was the Rocksteady crew. Mm-hmm. To the hip hop world, my park was known as Rocksteady Park, you know, and to the basketball community, it was known as the GOAT. So you got two legendary, you know, iconic entities, both in the same playground. And, you know, and where I grew up, that wasn't unique. You know what I'm saying? You can go up to Dykeman, you know, where Lou Alcindor shot his first hook shot,
right?
You know, right. By Jim Couch, his coach, who taught him. And that's the same park that's in Star Wars in the beginning, you know, the blue and yellow painted court that Rocksteady used to go to and practice. So, you know, I mean, you can go to Echo Park in the Bronx and, you know, on and on and on. Like, you know, the basketball court was the community center outdoors that was free and accessible for both the basketball and hip hop community to grow, you know. And it was a very clandestine movement, you know, even though we were making waves and ripples, you know, throughout the world, and eventually, you know, it would go global. We all knew that. It was just too powerful to contain in New York, you know. But I'm thankful, so thankful that I got to experience that. You know, I can remember vividly playing at Mount Morris Park in Harlem. It's now called Marcus Garvey. But if you're of a certain age, you still call it Mount Morris, you know. I mean, and, you know, I think it's great that they renamed it to Marcus Garvey. But yeah, it's the same park that, I don't know if you saw Questlove's film, Summer of Soul.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, where they had like Stevie Wonder,
Stapleton and all that, and
Nina Simone perform. You know, and that's the same park. And I'm playing there in 1981. You know, summer '81 in the Holcomb Rucker Memorial Youth League, and you know, the scorekeeper had a turntable on the table. You know,
right.
Doing Treacherous 3 to Body Rock. I'll never forget that. Right. Being on a layup line to Body Rock. Like, what? You know, so, and it was just, you know, it was just early in the movement of so much. And, you know, the way we dressed, the way we, you know, laced our sneakers, the way, you know, everything that we had culturally about basketball hadn't really been exposed yet. So we were like in a vacuum. You know, and so I feel so blessed to have experienced the 80s in that way.
I saw a video of you. You got handles, sir.
Thank you. I gotta
shout out those old heads still.
No doubt. I got to shout out my man, Paul Wilkinson.
Yes, sir.
In Chicago, you know, think about, you know, white boys. And every time I've been to Chicago, every time we link up, we play horse, or he'll grab a couple of, you know, cats that he's like mentoring, and we'll play 21 or 3-on-3, whatever it is, you know. But
just saw him recently. Yeah,
I've had some great meetups with my man, Paul. I don't think he's yet to beat me, and you know, I feel bad because I'm coming into his hometown, you know. But
here we go. This is what I'm talking about. Wait till he hears this, boy. He's gonna be all upset.
He can't contest, yo. He's yet to beat me, yo.
Oh man.
Even he brought his man. This kid was nice. I think he was going to he was about to go to some, you know, D1 college. The kid was, you know, he could play, but yeah, we dueled it out. You know, we had fun, man. You know, I love Paul. I love Chicago. Listen, I went out there for the first time in 1989 or 1990. I was working at Def Jam, and I was, doing promotions, and we had an artist named Downtown Science.
Yes.
They had a 12-inch called Room to Breathe, and I took them out to Chicago. We had a local rep, and we was in the limo, because Def Jam was doing the big back then. We had LL Cool J and Public Enemy and Slick Rick and, originally the Beastie Boys, and then, Third. So everybody that was coming out on the label was like platinum, gold, So, and we was, I forget where we were. We were near, what's the name of the projects that came down?
Robert Taylor or Cabrini Green?
Cabrini. We was near Cabrini. And I saw a basketball car. I said, "Yo, stop the cars. So we gotta shoot." I've been to 47, 48 countries in 6 continents. Everywhere I go, if I'm there to do a basketball clinic, all good. I'm already locked in. If I'm there to announce a game, already I'm locked in. But if I'm there to DJ or on some hip hop movement, I'm like, yo, I asked the promoter, yo, I know you got peoples that play ball. You gotta let me know, because I just had to say, yo, I play ball in Chicago. And it was hot that day. And it was asphalt with the grass, coming out, growing out of the cracks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like the court wasn't kept too well, but there was a kid out there shooting jump shots, and me and him got together, and we put up some jumpers. Gave the respect, gave each other the nod. We didn't play. We didn't play competitively. But I'll never forget that, B. I'll never forget that, yo. So I got mad love for Chicago.
He's an author, you know that. Part of the sneaker culture, you learned that. But this segment is all about music. Music. All kinds of music. Just a lot of music. We talk about the original conversation between Bobbito and Stretch at the beginnings of their massively famous radio program. We also talk about how they dealt with resistance playing rap music, and what is getting his attention these days when he listens to the radio, if he even listens to the radio. Here's more with Bobbito on Randomly Select.
I directed a film in 2015 titled Stretch and Bobbito, Radio That Changed Lives, which actually got a premiere on Showtime, and then eventually was licensed to Netflix for like 3 years, and brought our narrative to India and, places that we never thought we would reach with our history. But, in that film, it was a lot of fun because me and Stretch had to, revisit a lot of memories that we quite honestly forgot about. It's like small minutia, of interactions between us. But, truthfully, I was working at Def Jam at the time, and he was a club DJ that was studying at Columbia University. And, we just, we formed like Voltron, and got on the radio and had no prep. We didn't write out an outline for segments, for the first show. Like, we had our classroom was the legendary radio shows of New York in the 80s, from Marley Marl and Pete Rock and Kevy Kev and Special K and Teddy Ted and Red Alert and Prince Messiah and, on and on and on. Mr. Magic, Chuck Chill Out. I mean, it was so many cats, that were on radio, both commercial and college, Wild Man Steve on BAU. So, we never took notes, but we just, we were listeners, we were of the culture, right? And so when we got on the air ourselves, we never really talked about like, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is our vision. It was just like, yo, like, we know what we got to do. We're in the most competitive market for rap in the world. It's like 30, there were like 30 shows.
Wow.
Throughout the 5 boroughs. And if you include Long Island and New Jersey and their signals that were coming to the city, like, you had to really stand out if you were going to get listeners, And I guess, we were both like nerds for beats and lyrics, and we saw eye to eye on taste, Yeah. And so it was natural. It wasn't like a hard decision to be like, hey, let's really, feature unsigned artists. It was like, that just seemed like the right thing to do, So because of that, Nas, Biggie, Wu-Tang, Mobb Deep, Eminem, Jay-Z, Big L, LP, I could list 30 artists who changed the face of the industry that came through our show as unsigned teenagers.
Right.
You know, their first public broadcast was on our radio show. You know, we became a beacon of hope. You know, we became aspirational. You know, it's like, oh, I could get on Stretch and Bob. You know, I made it. You know, and it was very organic in that way. And then, you know, when Biggie became Biggie and Nas became Nas and all these dudes, you know, all of our listeners throughout the early 90s like look back and be like, yo, I heard these dudes like 3 years ago.
Right.
Well, who are they playing now in 94 and 95 that's going to be the next, you know? And so that, you know, by 94, 95, 96, that's when our show really went like bananas, you know? But the early years are the most dear for both of us, you know, because it was like the learning curve was just insane, you know.
Did you ever meet any resistance from the folks who ran the radio station when it came to like, because I know there was the safe hours where you're able to play music with all kinds of just really foul words in it.
Mm-hmm.
Safe harbor is what they called it. But did
safe
you meet
harbor,
any...
FCC. No, I mean, you know, we were fortunate in that, you know, Columbia University has always been a leader in critically in radio. I mean, Columbia University's station is actually the first FM station in the world.
Yep.
So, you know, the management there, you know, used to tell us like, yo, it's after midnight. Like, you want to play curses, go ahead. Like, we were like, word? They were like, you just can't curse during the mic breaks.
Right.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, and that gave us an advantage because a lot of stations in New York and maybe nationally as well, they weren't given that green light. So that opened up to us being able to play demos and album cuts and, you know, and B-sides that we could really feature, you know, that other stations just couldn't play, or they played them, you know, with the bleeps, you know, but that took a lot of extra work back then, you know, because you were bleeping stuff out like manually live, you know, or you would, you know, had to spend extra studio time to do that. But then you couldn't play it on vinyl, you know, so, yeah, I mean, we had a lot of advantages. We also had 4 hours. You know, most mix shows in the 80s had the most, an hour, 2 hours. We was coming with 4 hours. So, I mean, people were just making like, you know, 90-minute cassettes and then a 60-minute cassette. You know, you could go to Rock and Wills on 125th Street and spend like, you know, $40 on mixtapes, or you could just listen to us for free, you know, and buy $1 Memorex, you know, and tape it, you know. So, you know, it gave us a lot of advantages for sure.
I remember back in the day where cats would go to New York, like a Jesse De La Pena would fly to New York or something, or
big up Jesse De La Pena. I remember his party, Funky Buddha, I think.
Yeah, man. Man.
I went there with Rosario Dawson. In the 90s, she was in Chicago to film Light It Up.
Yep.
And with Usher, and I went out to hang out with us. That's like my little sister, you know. I was like, yo, come on, let's go to party. Jesse De La Pena, he's rocking. He had like drummers in there in the middle of the dance floor with no shirt on. Like, yo, that spot was bumping, yo. What? That spot was bumping. Anyway, yeah. I'm sorry, I mean interrupt you.
No, man, no. I was just gonna say people like Jesse. Or if one of the up-and-coming cats back then would go take a trip out east, they would record you guys' show. So in Chicago, even though we couldn't hear it as it was happening, we were like, yo, Stretch and Bob had so-and-so on. And we'd listen and be like knee-deep in it. And that framed in Chicago a lot of how we listen to music. So I don't know if anybody's ever said this to you before, and I would imagine someone in the world has. You and Stretch are really very much responsible for how radio treated and treats hip hop. And the reason why I'm saying this to you is because I think we're at a time now where it's such the miasma of hip hop. The culture of hip hop is one thing. The miasma of rap music, though, is another. And there's really
I don't even know what that word means. What is miasma?
It's a mess. It's all
I'm gonna look that
mess.
up.
Everything.
Can I bite that? Can I start using that myself?
If you're asking me, I'm saying yes, and I'm telling everybody that you
I'm gonna
asked
teach
me
my
that.
son miasma. It sounds like melisma. You know what melisma is?
No, I don't.
Melisma is like when you sing like Yeah, the miasma of melisma. That's going to be the title of my next book.
Hey, man, word. Do that for me. I appreciate you. I will tell everybody, I'm like, man, I gave Bobbito a title for his new book. But with the culture of hip-hop being one thing, that seems to still have its foundation and the reverence for that. Rap music is a different thing these days, though. And without giving me or without me giving you the whole, what is it like to watch hip hop now or rap music as it was back then, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. What do you see when you check out these new cats now? What is it that gets your attention where you're like, that's dope? And what makes you go, they can keep that?
I mean, I still have the same ear that I have had since the first time I heard people rhyme in 1977, right? And so I've always been someone who appreciates, effort into writing and, wordplay. Just like you said, miasma, like I loved artists that had vocabulary, that I could hear them say something and be like, oh, I want to, look that word up. What does that mean? Artists that provide curiosity, or provide layers, Rakim or Nas, you can listen to some of their records 30 years later and finally realize a metaphor that they said that you didn't realize at the time when you first heard it because you were bopping your head or you were dancing or whatever. So since I retired from the radio in 2002, I have not heard much rap music since. And people always hit me up like, oh, there's new artists, I think you would like them. And, oh, I know you would like them. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But I'm a vinyl dude. You can look, for those listening to the podcast, you can't see, but, Mario has a view of my record room right now. And I'm an analog dude, so a lot of artists don't press their records up on vinyl. In which case, they're gonna go over my radar. Like I'm only focused on, the artists that care enough to put their records on wax, and which limits me. But also like I lived a phenomenal era of rap music in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so I have not heard much that has surpassed the plateau that rap reached in the 90s. I've heard some stuff that's met it, but I haven't heard anything that surpassed it. And so for that, my curiosity about, this new artist or this new song or this new album, it's not what I hold my breath for, on a monthly or even annual basis. If I hear a new great new record, cool, I'm happy. Yeah. But generally it's just kind of like meets the already existing standards or goes way below it, like way below it, in which case, I love music too much. It's too dear to me. So I can't spend time or waste time, going through music the way I did in the 90s when I was on the radio. I was on the radio for 12 years. Yeah. Weekly from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. And I used to spend like 2-3 hours a week going through music, listening to every single demo, and, I might get 100 demos in a year. Some had 2-3 songs. So there's 300 songs, 400, 500 songs I listened to a year. I paid, I gave back to the community what I could, it's not my position anymore. It's not my desire. Plenty of other DJs that are doing that and doing it incredibly well. And I salute them, but that's not where my head is at.
We end our program with some closing thoughts from Bobbito Garcia.
Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High is my book, written for ages 7 and up, but truthfully, a picture book, to quote Natalie from Black World Schoolers, a shop in a mobile bookstore in Indiana. Picture books are for everyone, right? And so because I've had so many adults buy the book and like be blown away by it, I've already been turning the wheels of putting it into the universe that this project should and could become an animated short similar to what Hair Love did, you know, and then, you know, the Hair Love eventually became a TV series, you know, and I'm hoping that if I can make enough noise with Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High, you know, that eventually it will transform and adapt into other things. You know, would I like to do a follow-up book? Yeah, sure, for that. I'm on the air on a bi-weekly basis on Apple Music Hits with Stretch, playing house music, Afrobeat, Latin, soul, jazz, you know, neo soul, whatever, you know. But every once in a while we play some rap joints, play ballads. It's beautiful, you know. It's me and Stretch having a lot of fun, not having any boundaries to our musical interests. And it's not just it's bi-weekly live, but you know, if you have an Apple Music subscription, you can you know, play it audio on demand, and they just re-signed us for another season, so you know, that's rocking. And
all right,
you know, I would love for me and Stretch at some point to transition our radio show into a TV series, you know. That's been in development for a couple of years, and you know, I'm putting it out in the universe. Maybe it'll happen at some point, you know. But besides that, you know, I have twitch.tv/CoolBobLove, where I DJ live, you know, for audience while I'm streaming, you know, 2-3 times a week. You know, my audience keeps on growing on there. Like I told you, I've been contributing to other books and publications. You know, that's a constant basis. I just consulted Netflix on an upcoming basketball documentary that's about to drop in a few weeks. I probably can mention it now.
Yeah,
it's about Bill Russell.
Nice.
It's a 2-part series. And I was a marketing consultant for them.
Do you think the proper comparison instead of LeBron and Mike should be LeBron and Bill Russell?
No, there's no comparison to Mike, period. End of conversation.
I'm with you. Look, I saw it. I know. But the world continues to try to compare those two dudes. And I'm like, man, LeBron's game is, nobody's ever played a game like that. He's a freak. But Michael Jordan was a completely different thing. That was just a basketball player, man. He played basketball. LeBron James is a tight end with a great inside game that will give it to you. But I always looked at Bill Russell when I was little. That was my guy, you know, and I wasn't a Celtics fan at all, but that was my man because I loved watching him dominate dudes bigger than him. Those games with him and Will Chamberlain are some of the greatest basketball games ever played because Bill Russell was like, I don't care how big you are. Here we go. What time is it? I'll be there. I'm ready for you.
Nah, it's a revealing documentary about his social justice work as well, and you know, I look forward to that coming out. But you know, also I'm a voice of a new video game called Blacktop Hoops VR. It's a virtual reality technology. You got to wear the Oculus headset, and you know, and if you went to NBA Street Volume 2, basically it's Vinci Games who developed it. They wanted Blacktop Hoops to be like the spiritual sibling of NBA Street Volume 2. So, you know, for those heads who remember the EA Sports release with my voice on that, you know, I did that. I do a tournament called Full Court 21. In 2019, we reached 30 international cities. During the pandemic, I haven't done it in New York, but it's still going on in Canada and Japan and Philadelphia and certain cities here and there. So, you know, I'm always up to a lot, man. You know, I do merchandise, design T-shirts with beatballjunkies.com. You know, what else, man? DJ, writer, ball player. I train still, you know, I do some one-on-ones, and sometimes I do like instructional videos for kids and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm always up to a lot, man. You know, I have like a whole list. Honestly, I have so many things going on simultaneously. I can't even remember everything that I'm doing. But I'm about to have Smithsonian and Cornell acquire some of my hip hop archives, which I'm excited about, so that they could be available to the public, you know, for learning in perpetuity. You know, but, you know, right now the priority is my book, Aim High, Little Giant, Aim High. I appreciate, you know, the good people of the Silver Room, you know, and the staff for embracing, you know, the title and giving me an opportunity to be here on this podcast to talk about it.
Listen, man, we use the phrase for the culture probably when it's not supposed to be used, but today this was for the culture, for real. Listen, man, I have a list of things I wanted to do, and you and Stretch and being able to talk to one of the two of you or both of you at some point was definitely on my list. I appreciate you so much, Bobbito. Thank you, man, for being on our show.
No doubt. No, thank you, man. And salute. All right, Eric, you the man, yo.
Right on. Special thanks to my man Bobbito Garcia for being on our show. You have no idea what this means to me and to the silent producer who might just start screaming and yelling at some point during our program. The next randomly selected, if you are a hooper or you love DePaul basketball or you are a fan of the Dallas Mavericks or the Detroit Pistons, our next guest is Chicago's very own Mark Aguirre. Join us next time on Randomly Selected, powered by the Silver Room. Peace.